Get ready for another Mercedes master or disaster class, as Mercedes team chief Toto Wolff believes his team can recover from a dismal performance in Austria with the next round of upgrades at Silverstone. As this weekend, the Brackley-based team will release its second significant upgrade for the 2023 campaign. It had a rough performance in Austria last time around, with Lewis Hamilton and teammate George Russell finishing 8th and 7th respectively. "We're pleased to get back racing after a bruising weekend in Austria," Wolff said. "We scored a handful of points, but we didn't have the pace for much more." The field behind Red Bull is incredibly close and also fluctuating each weekend. Some of this is circuit-specific, and some the upgrade cycle across the grid. "We fell on the wrong side of this equation in Spielberg, but we've got a chance to bounce back immediately." Mercedes performed strongly at the British Grand Prix last year and has shown signs of positive pace ever since it unveiled its first batch of upgrades earlier this year. Wolff believes there is reason to be optimistic about the team's performance for the rest of the season, as it aims to make more inroads. "The team has been hard at work to analyse and draw learnings from our performance," he said. "We've taken the result on the chin and will aim to recapture the momentum we had built up across previous races." With the next upgrades and experiments coming in Silverstone, there are reasons for optimism. Nevertheless, we're not getting ahead of ourselves. We're focusing on the job at hand, extracting performance from the car, and we'll see where we stand this weekend. The British Grand Prix is one of the highlights of the season. The atmosphere at Silverstone is unique, and the support from the fans is truly incredible. It's also our local race, with the track just down the road from the factories in Brackley and Brixworth. It's a fast and flowing layout which creates great racing, so hopefully we can perform well and put on a good show. What do you think? Will Mercedes be able to fight for the win? In other breaking news about Mercedes, Toto Wolff stated that Mercedes owe Lewis an 8th championship title, further aiming at a contract extension, which is much to the liking of F1 CEO Domenicali. As the F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali asked Toto Wolff to make sure Lewis Hamilton is running with a good F1 car following a meeting, to which Toto replied, "We owe him an 8th championship." After a meeting with Toto Wolff, F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali, the heads of the 7 UK-based Formula 1 teams, Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport Lucy Fraser, and Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's advisors, Wolff and Domenicali spoke briefly with Sky Sports. "Lewis Hamilton is clearly the most important personality in our sport," Wolff said. "He's so multi-dimensional. He's not only a racing driver and world champion, but he is trailblazing for diversity, for sustainability, and there are no limits for Lewis Hamilton as a racing driver, as an entrepreneur and as a politician. I think he's one of the most spectacular personalities and characters I have ever met." After that, Sky Sports reporter Craig Slater questioned Domenicali whether he wanted Toto to sign Lewis for a few more years. "I would say more short-term I would love to see Lewis still fighting on the track," the Italian said. "But I agree with Toto that he is an incredible personality. He's shown that he has raised the bar of interest in a lot of topics. In the short term I would say, Toto, make sure that he's running with a good F1 car," Domenicali concluded. Toto said, "We owe him an 8th championship." Do you see this happening anytime soon before the regulations change again? And are you excited for the regulation changes? As there has been a lot, and we really mean a lot of talk about it around the paddock recently. This has resulted in F1 teams asking the FIA to do a more detailed examination of the impact of the new 2026 cars and engines due to worries about their performance on track. There are concerns that plans to expand reliance on batteries with a 50-50 mix between combustion engine and electrical power output might backfire, leaving cars unable to race flat out around a lap due to insufficient energy production. While the FIA is satisfied that the issue is under control and that it is early to be concerned, Horner stated that F1 must be cautious about what occurs, suggesting that it may be best to lessen dependency on electrical power. "I think that perhaps where we need to pay urgent attention before it's too late is to look at the ratio between combustion power and electrical power," he said at the Austrian Grand Prix. "We need to ensure that we're not creating a technical Frankenstein, which will require the chassis to compensate to such a degree with movable aero and reduce the drag to such a level that the racing will be affected, and that there will be no tow effect and no DRS because effectively you're running like that at all points in time. Plus, with the characteristics of these engines, that the combustion engine just doesn't become a generator to recharge a battery. Horner does not feel the problem is difficult to address, claiming that a simple 5% change in combustion and electrical power might be sufficient, but he does believe it is vital to get right. We still have 2.5 years, and I think if there is a slight redress, it would then create potentially a better platform for the chassis, he said. Otherwise, the chassis regs are undefined yet and uncommitted. We're going to be trying to cater for those compromises. You've got to look at the thing holistically, from both a technical point of view, and most importantly, what is F1? F1 needs to be wheel-to-wheel racing. We can't afford to lose that challenge and have drivers downshifting on the straights to regenerate batteries. I know the FIA is taking it very seriously, and they're looking at it very closely as the simulations become more advanced. Horner stated that another problem that needed to be considered in the examination of the 2026 guidelines was the additional weight of the batteries, which he described as colossal. One of the big impacts for 2026 is weight, he said. You're looking at pretty much a 30-kilogram swing on cars that are already approaching the sort of sports car type of weight through the cooling. And in real F1 fashion, the opposition had their say on Horner's stance. And surprisingly, Wolff did not share Horner's concerns, and he believes there is some politicking going on, which might be tied to Red Bull's own powertrain development. For the first time in its history, Red Bull is designing and producing its own engine, which will be done in collaboration with Ford beginning in 2026. Asked for his opinion about Horner's 2026 stance, Wolff said, "I think what frightens him more maybe is that his entire program is not coming along, and then maybe he wants to kill the rules that way." So you always have to question what's the real motivation to say something like that. Wolff, on the other hand, believes that with so much work put into the 2026 engine rules to entice Audi and persuade Honda to commit once again, there will be no going back on the plans. That's not going to happen. Zero chance, capital letters, said Wolff. So I don't know why these things are coming up. We have developed these regulations over many years, with all the auto manufacturers being involved. It was a compromise that attracted Audi to finally joining the sport, and for Honda to stay in there. This is the best possible case that one could imagine for F1. Is it challenging? Are our chassis designers saying, well, how are we going to do this? Yeah, but super. These regulations are not going to change anymore. They're not going to be postponed anymore, because the world needs to show innovation around sustainability. We need to reduce emissions, and we're super excited. While there will be hurdles ahead to guarantee that the active aero intended for the 2026 cars works in making F1 cars perform at a similar level to currently in both corners and straights, Wolff believes the issues are not insurmountable. It's doom-mongerers, Wolff remarked of allegations that the show will suffer because drivers will be moving down gears on the straights to recharge batteries. Do you think that in all reality, we're not innovative in this sport to come up with chassis and engine regulations that can avoid drivers shifting down on the straight? It is real that when you take today's chassis and put the future power unit in it, there are a few tracks with very long straights, believed to include Monza, Saudi and Baku, where we would have massive D-rates in the power unit. But that's today's efficiency. We're not bolting on today's chassis, which are heavy like a prototype and big like an elephant. That's what we need to reinvent for 2026. And whether it is some retractable aerodynamic element, or whether the shapes of the cars are going to change in order to meet the more sustainable world, more aerodynamic efficiency, I think that's great. Christian Horner believes Toto Wolff F1 2026's attitude is motivated by selfish interests. F1 2026 will be Red Bull Powertrain's debut season as a Formula 1 power unit manufacturer, alongside Ford. Although Horner has expressed grave worries about the new regulations, which he believes would result in a technical Frankenstein. Wolff's remarks have irritated Horner, who has thrown the blame back at Wolff when it comes to selfish intentions. Unfortunately, that's typical Toto, where he's just focused on self-performance, Horner is quoted by Sky Sports. My interest is actually about the sport rather than self-gain. It's still way too early to say who's going to have a competitive or uncompetitive engine in 2026. For me, the most important thing is from a sports point of view, that we all have a collective responsibility to work with the FIA and the commercial rights holder to ensure that the product is as good as it can be, otherwise we've all failed. In response to Wolff's argument that these regulations drew new drivers to Formula 1, Horner stated, "The regulations are a hybrid of what was originally intended, and of course, it's only as you work through a set of regulations that you find out where their limitations are. I think the FIA is being very responsible in terms of doing its due diligence, and I think certain teams share very similar opinions to that of our own. I think they have a capable team. I think they're aware of what the challenges are." Much of Horner's concern about the F1 2026 regulations is around the impact of greater electrical power versus the output of the internal combustion engine. Furthermore, active aerodynamics are expected to be a part of the F1 2026 cars, and Horner is concerned that DRS and the tow effect will be decreased to the point where wheel-to-wheel racing action diminishes. What do you think, and what side are you on? Are you in any way excited for these regulation changes? And coming back to now, Mercedes will bring the next part of its F1 2023 enhancements to the upcoming British Grand Prix, which Mercedes 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton has won a record-breaking 8 times. Will he be able to record his 9th win at Silverstone this weekend? Or could George Russell surprise us all? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.